people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. A pleasant surprise. For the week of the Gervonta Davis versus Jake Paul fight, that same Tuesday, former champions Nazarena Romero and Yarde Rivas will be squaring off against each other for the second time, in what is a sequel to their initial meeting 2 years ago in June of 2023. I had no idea that talks were being held for a second fight. This is likely a byproduct of the Flores versus Scottney fight. See, before the Flores versus Scottney fight was officially announced, there were talks of a Romero versus Flores rematch. After Mayeli beat Nazarena for the WBA title, there was supposed to be a second fight to give Nazarena a chance to win her WBA title back. Instead of that, a Flores versus Scottney fight was announced. And so I think this is MVP's way of compensating Nazarena Romero for the fight that she was intended to have. Nazarena, who sports a professional record of 14 wins with 1 loss and 2 draws, 8 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 17 professional bouts. I believe this fight is MVP's way of smoothing things over with Nazarena to allow the Scottney versus Flores fight to happen, to allow their fighter Ellie Scottney to fight for undisputed. I believe that's what this is, because neither Nazarena Romero or Yarde Rivas are signed to MVP. So for what reason would they be using them? It's gotta be to smooth things over. Yarde Rivas, the former WBA champion who sports a professional record of 17 wins with 6 losses, 3 draws, and 11 knockouts, having never been knocked out. And 26 professional bouts last in action over a year ago, in October of last year, when she fought America's own Micaiah Krebs and dropped a decision. Currently, Yarde is coming off of 2 consecutive losses. One to Erica Cruz, then another to Micaiah Krebs. 37 years old, approximately 6 years older than Nazarena Romero, who's still coming off that loss to Mayeli Flores earlier this year in May. And in that way, Nazarena Romero might be coming off a loss just like Yarde, but she's seen action in the last 12 months where Yarde hasn't. Yarde, who is the noticeably older fighter. And just like in their initial meeting, I favor Nazarena to win the fight. Their initial meeting ended in a draw, and Yarde, then WBA champion, was very lucky to receive it, as she was well on her way to being stopped 2 years ago. The pressure from Nazarena was more than Yarde could deal with at the time, but the contest was brought to an abrupt halt due to a clash of heads. Subsequently scored a technical draw, a draw that Yarde was very lucky to walk away with. And so 2 years later, now that she's 37, I don't think those 37-year-old legs will do a better job of keeping Yarde Rivas out of harm's way. Yarde Rivas likes to move around, use the ring, use the jab, whereas Nazarena, she's a pressure fighter, likes to barrel forward, throw punches in bunches, heavy shots. Noted dichotomy. I favored Nazarena to win their initial meeting, and now I favor her to win the second fight, the week of Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis, which services as sort of an appetizer to the main course. We're going to get to see this card that Tuesday, then the main card that Friday. And don't forget that Friday, that's the same weekend as Eubank versus Ben 2, so that's going to be a busy week in the sport of boxing. What is Yarde Rivas' chance to cap off this year in the winner's bracket with a win in the column to start the next year the right way.
Good standing.
In what is a battle of the former champions, more specifically, the former WBA champions. Yarde held the title,
And so did Nazarena, albeit very briefly.
second fight will take place on a much bigger stage than their initial meeting. Their first fight flew largely under the radar, whereas this...
Well, this is being promoted by MVP, who is fast becoming the flagship promoter for women boxers all around the world. Good on them to afford the girls this opportunity. I'm looking forward to it, and I like Nazarena to win.
In men's lightweight news, you may have heard earlier today, Matchroom has won the Raymond Muratalla versus Andy Cruz IBF title purse bid. Andy Cruz has officially landed his first world title shot. On Thursday, at the IBF's headquarters in Springfield, New Jersey, purse bids took place for Cruz versus Muratalla. Cruz's promoter Matchroom and Top Rank, Muratalla's handlers, were the sole bidders. Matchroom came out with the winning bid, putting up $888,888. Top Rank's bid was a lean $550,000. In total, current IBF lightweight champion Muratalla is entitled to 65% of that bid, which is $577,777.
They could use that to buy a new pair of jeans.
Cruz would pocket the remaining 35%, totaling $311,000, which is more than your average Cuban boxer makes. Cruz, the former two-time Olympic gold medalist, became Muratalla's mandatory following a fifth-round stoppage over Hironori Mishiro on June 14th at the theater in New York's Madison Square Garden. Muratalla won the IBF title against Zaur Abdullaev on May 10th at the Pechanga Arena in San Diego. The 28-year-old was later elevated to full champion as Vasyl Lomachenko, who held the full version of the belt, decided to retire.
So Raymond Muratalla is stuck between a rock and a hard cock.
Though he's not all the way fucked, he actually comes out making more money now that Matchroom has won the purse bid instead of Top Rank, since Top Rank only valued the fight at a little over $500,000.
And of the $500,000, he only would have got 65% of that. With Matchroom winning the bid, he pockets $500,000.
All to himself.
Matchroom will announce when and where their matchup will take place. I anticipate that maybe this fight gets added to the December 13th show with Diego Pacheco against Kevin Lele Sajo.
Wishful thinking that we get to see this fight before this year is out. Of course, they could always schedule it for sometime early next year, but there's still enough time remaining that it could happen, theoretically, this one.
What do you think wins the fight?
I look at it as a 50-50 fight because Andy Cruz is a lot more talented and a lot more fly and flashy than Raymond Muratalla is, but Raymond has noticeably more fights and more rounds in the bank than Andy. So even if Andy is more talented than Raymond, what Raymond lacks in talent, he makes up for in experience.
50-50 fight.
Both Raymond and Andy have strong corners. In Andy's corner, we have Bozy Ennis, who's fast becoming the man of the hour, training the likes of Andy Cruz, his son Jaron Ennis,
Jack Catterall, former champion Stephen Fulton, current reigning IBF champion O'Shea Jones.
quickly amassing a diverse portfolio of fighters that he is working with. And of course, in Raymond's corner, we have veteran trainer Robert Garcia, who's trained an innumerable number of fighters that he's guided to world titles. So they both have strong corners.
Wins the fight.
It's a 50-50 fight, but I am leaning a little bit towards Andy Cruz. More so now that he will have home field advantage, in a manner of speaking. He's the house fighter. This is a Matchroom show. He is a Matchroom fighter. Maybe that will get him some consideration in tandem with Raymond Muratalla's last 2 or 3 starts. Raymond hasn't been looking too hot his last 2 or 3 fights, and he strikes me as a fighter who's caught between styles. When I first saw Raymond, he had the look of a pressure guy, a pressure fighter.
When I first saw him.
But he didn't look too hot in the Tevin Farmer fight. He labored for that victory a lot more than I expected him to, and ever since then, he's trying to be more of a boxer, more of an X's and O's guy, not looking too hot doing it.
Trying to be more cerebral?
So because Raymond is experimenting with a new way of fighting, a new style, well, I don't really like his chances. His best bet to keep that belt is to go back to being aggressive, go back to stalking a guy and walking him down and putting pressure on him. That's his best bet to beat Andy, because he ain't gonna win a boxing match.
Yeah, Raymond is basically cosplaying a boxer.
Whereas that's Andy Cruz's forte. I like Andy Cruz to win a points decision. I think that Andy is faster on his feet with faster hands than Raymond Muratalla, more athletic and quicker to the draw. I don't think Andy Cruz is all that durable. I would actually give the edge in durability to young Raymond.
I think he takes a better punch.
But because Andy Cruz is a tricky fighter, he's such a tricky guy, and because Raymond is already labored with the likes of Tevin Farmer, who was approaching the end of his career, if you labored with Tevin, you're gonna lose to Andy. That's how I see it.
The sky must be falling. Matchroom won a purse bid?
Surprising indeed. For whatever reason, Matchroom doesn't usually win purse bids. They don't usually do too good when that happens, but this time, they lucked out. Raymond must now answer to Andy Cruz. That is, unless he's just going to chuck that belt in the air to get out of this fight, keep his unbeaten record. That's the alternative.
Yeah, it's the alternative, but I don't think he's going to do that. Win or lose, he stands to make $500,000. That's a lot more than what he's been making at Top Rank.
Yeah, that buys a lot of pairs of jeans.
No, I think Raymond is going to fight to keep his belt, but ultimately, I think he's going to lose it. I have ND winning the fight.
In men's light heavyweight news, Anthony Yarde senses overconfidence from David Benavidez because he's undefeated. Anthony Yarde isn't convinced that David Benavidez is fully focused on their fight. The British contender can't help but believe Benavidez has planned too far ahead before they've fought for his WBC light heavyweight title. He has heard and read Benavidez's comments about challenging Dimitri Bivol when the ring and former undisputed champion returns back from surgery, eventually facing another former fully unified champion in Artur Beterbiev. Before moving up to cruiser for a fight with WBA, WBO champion Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez, Benavidez contends that he merely answers questions honestly when he's interviewed. Those discussions, from Benavidez's viewpoint, are not a reflection of how he is approaching his title defense against the heavy-handed Yarde. Regardless, Yarde thinks Benavidez's unblemished record has given the Phoenix native an aura of invincibility that was beaten out of him in a technical knockout loss to Artur Beterbiev and another former champion in Sergei Kovalev.
Knowing what it's like to lose and dealing with the damage defeats do to a boxer's career is an advantage Yarde feels will help him when they square off in the 12-round main event of the Ring 4 Night of Champions card, November 22nd at the A&B Arena in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Sort of a paradox. Because Anthony Yarde has been beaten before 3 times already, does that make him less or more dangerous? Yarde detailed his perspective as part of a recent Inside the Ring interview with co-hosts Max Kellerman and Mike Coppinger and panelists Chris Ariola and LaShawn McCoy. For me, one thing I know about myself is, again, I've taken a loss before and I know how to handle it, Yarde said. So I feel like that's what makes me more dangerous for this fight. David Benavidez has never lost, and I feel like sometimes that can be a bit, that can be overconfidence. I've seen, certain interviews, and when he's talking about fights after me and things like that. So hopefully he's focused for this fight, because from what I've learned from studying the sport of boxing, that's how people slip up. Now, Russia's Kovalev stopped Yarde in the 11th round of a bout Yarde trailed on all 3 judges' scorecard years ago in August of 2019 in Kovalev's hometown of Chelyabinsk, Russia. That win enabled Kovalev to secure a career-high payday against Canelo Alvarez in his following fight. Yarde led Beterbiev on one card when the Russian knockout artist stopped him in the 8th round of their January 2023 bout in London more than 2 years ago. But both of those guys, Sergey and Artur, those are bigger punchers than David
Benavidez.
A then unbeaten Briton in Lyndon Arthur is the only other opponent to defeat Anthony, but Yarde avenged that split decision loss in December of 2020 by knocking out Artur in the 4th round of their rematch almost a year later. Yarde also unanimously outpointed Artur in their 12-round rubber match in April 26 in London. After I fought Beterbiev, he said, "I'm up next," Yarde said. After I fought Kovalev, He said that I'm up next as well. Mexicans, their styles are very, very different. David Benavidez has been, you can call it almost perfect so far. And these are the things that make me thrive. I'll just be real with you. I don't want no trying to persuade the public or anything like that. The public that have watched me fight before, they know they're going to see a good fight. But I'm going to be the underdog, and I just want everyone to tune in. The 12-round bout between Benavidez, 28, and Yarde, 34.
Confidence has to be part of the reason that David accepted this fight. He's going to be boxing off-platform for the very first time, and boxing abroad in a foreign country for the very first time. And I don't think that David would have accepted a fight like that.
Not if he weren't confident. It will be a night of firsts for David Benavidez. His first defense as WBC light heavyweight champion, his first time boxing off platform, and his first time boxing abroad. Whereas for Anthony, he's already done that.
He went to Chelyabinsk, Russia for Sergey Kovalev, for God's sake.
I see what Anthony Yarde is getting at. That when you're unbeaten and your record is unblemished, you think you're invincible. You don't know how to lose yet until you run into a wall, until somebody teaches you and beats it into you like it was beaten into Anthony Yarde. Anthony intends to beat it into Benavidez.
Can he do it?
Well, the thing about David is he is the younger, fresher fighter, and he's got some speed in those hands within close quarters. He's a combination puncher. He's more prolific within a round and in a fight than Anthony Yarde. Anthony is a bit more economic, but Anthony has power, and that's why he's a live underdog. That's why he's a live animal, because David throwing those combinations leaves himself open to be caught in between.
Come on, we've seen it before. We saw it in the Gavril fight. We saw it in the more recent David Morrell fight. David gets hit. He can be caught, and if he gets caught by Anthony...
The other thing is experience. Anthony has more experience at this weight than David Benavidez. He's experienced the power of Sergey Kovalev, of Artur Beterbiev. David don't punch like them. So what if the opening bell sounds, and Anthony gets a taste of David's would-be power and decides, well, this guy's not so powerful. This shit doesn't even hurt.
6 years ago, it took Sergey Kovalev 11 rounds to get rid of Anthony Yarde. Years later, it took Artur Beterbiev 8 rounds to get rid of that same Anthony Yarde, where David Benavidez couldn't get rid of David Morrell, couldn't get rid of Vosdick, couldn't get rid of Plant.
He may be a 10-1 favorite to win this fight over Anthony, but I think Anthony is a live underdog in this fight, a live animal. I think a big part of the reason they favor David Benavidez to win the fight is because he is younger and unbeaten. But there's a first time for everything.
He's only 2 fights into his light heavyweight campaign. This will be the third.
Still relatively new to this division, and given his style and styles making fights, David's not the guy that's going to get on his toes and box behind a jab like Lyndon Arthur did. So he doesn't punch as hard as Sergey or Artur, and
he's not going to box and move like Lyndon Arthur did.
These are the guys that beat Anthony Yarde, guys that David Benavidez has very little in common with. So perhaps Anthony is not getting enough consideration from the odds makers, and that's all right because he's used to that. He expects it.
But he's a live dog. He's a live underdog in this fight.